اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل إبراهيم اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم اللهم صل اللهم بارك على محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Brothers and elders, mothers and sisters in Islam, we are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has allowed us to reach the month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this month of Ramadan beneficial for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the spiritual and physical strength to benefit from the remaining days of Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this month the means of our spiritual elevation and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. During the course of Ramadan, for myself, what I try to do is that usually after Fajr, I try to share a discourse. I'm getting old. They don't want to see me. So usually during the course of Ramadan, I try my best in the masjid that I am in, that every single day, like for example, today is the first fast, I try to have some reflection from the first juz of the Quran. So tomorrow is the second fast, so take a reflection from the second juz of the Quran. So I try that at least if we can take back 30 reflections from the entire Quran in the month of Ramadan, it could be a means of inspiration in changing our lives. I want to share something with you from the first juz of the Quran as we are in the first day of our fast. There's so much to choose from the first juz of the Quran. I really wanted to talk about Surah Al-Baqarah, its introduction, the longest surah of the Quran. The first khitab that ever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does in the Quran is verse number 21 of Surah Al-Baqarah. In the beginning, the Quran talks about three types of people: the people of Iman, the people of disbelief, the munafiqun. Reason why Surah Al-Baqarah was revealed, why this surah was known as Surah Al-Baqarah, the reasons of Bani Israel, their ni'mah and their blessings, and then them becoming ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam and his sacrifice and how he became Al-Khalil, and all these things are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces to us in Surah Al-Baqarah, but I could not choose any of them. But at least I hope that this will remain as an inspiration for all of us to learn the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Briefly, I will scratch the surface, and I promise I'm not going to hold you for too long because there's no breakfast after this. So I know most of you will leave very quickly. So we have to finish very quickly as well. Most of us been up awake for the whole night because of the small nights. May Allah give barakah in our lives, inshallah. This is indeed qurbani and sacrifice, but it's really fruitful. And once it's finished, we will wish that it can come back. Sometimes it feels difficult at that moment, but when it goes away, you wish that you had that moment again. I remember when we were studying in our madaris and institution, the teachers were the strictest, the classes which were the most difficult. You hated that at that moment, but when it was done, you wish that the time can come back. You wish you can be on those moments and you can become fruitful again. But these days, even though they seem a little difficult, but wallahi, once they are gone, we will wish for these times to come back. I want to introduce Surah Al-Baqarah itself to all of us. Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Fatiha itself. I won't be able to go in details of it, but just scratching the surface. According to Tafsir al-Munir and many of the books of hadith, tafsir, there are more than 40 volumes of work that scholars have done only on Surah Al-Fatiha. 40 volumes of work that has only been done. Scholars have written, we can't even read. Right? That's the time now. That people have already written. Forget about writing. Now even reading itself is completely gone. I remember, forgive me, I'm going on too many tangents. That's what I usually do. I remember I was studying in madrasa one day. I was carrying a huge stack of books. I love collecting books. For those, some of youngsters who have been in my house, they have seen this. I was carrying a stack of books. This was Tafsirul Kabir, Tafsir Razi, Allama Razi rahmatullah alayhi's kitab. I was 7 to 8 volumes. I was holding it. I was bringing it in the school. I was bringing in my class. My ustad, my Sheikh Hussein Sadiqi Sahib stopped me and said, "What do you have in your hand?" I said, "I have Tafsir Razi in my hand." So he smiled at me and said, "Bhai, isko samajhne wale bhi dunya se chale gaye." Meaning those who used to even understand, forget about writing, those who used to understand this book has even gone away. What are you doing with this book? Meaning the comprehension of our ilm and knowledge has decreased so much that the level of ilm itself is decreasing in this ummah. And I always say two things which is destroying the ummah at this moment is our own internal differences and the lack of prophetic knowledge are the two core points that I personally see in the small lack of experience that I have in my life. Lack of unity and lack of prophetic ilm is something which is destroying the ummah into pieces. May Allah give us the uruj and the success that it had at the time of Rasulullah and Sahaba. Going back to Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha is the introduction of the Quran. The first surah to be recited every single day, every single rak'ah, we recite the surah of the Quran. This surah itself is a Makkan surah. When you talk about Makkan surah and Medina surah, what do they mean? Any surah which was revealed in the beginning, 13 years of the prophecy of Rasulullah ﷺ, they are known as Makkan surah, no matter where they were revealed. Any surah which is revealed in the last 10 years of the life of Rasulullah ﷺ, they are known as a Madni surah, no matter where it was revealed. Hudaybiyah and anywhere else, doesn't matter where it was revealed, location. But they are known as Makkan surah in the beginning 13 years, the Madni surah in the last 10 years. Surah Al-Fatiha as ijma, as consensus, is a Makkan surah. It is the first surah to be completely revealed on Prophet ﷺ as an entire surah itself. The entire 7 ayats, complete surah as given to Rasulullah ﷺ was Surah Al-Fatiha. Even though it was the beginning of Surah Iqra, Bismi Rabbika Alladhi Khalaq, and then Surah Duha, all these surahs were revealed as a small portion. A complete surah was only Surah Al-Fatiha, amongst the earliest revelations to the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. Surah Al-Fatiha itself has 7 ayats, 25 words, and 113 huruf, alphabets to its count. This is what Surah Al-Fatiha is. 7 ayats, 25 words, and 113 huruf to its breakdown. We can go to the breakdown of the huruf too, but the time won't permit us. Then going further towards Surah Al-Fatiha, it has many names. Surah Al-Fatiha, of course, which is known as the opener. Surah Al-Fatiha is also known as Asasul Quran, the essence of Quran. Surah Al-Fatiha is known as Ummul Quran, the mother of the Quran. Why is it known as Ummul Quran? I'm not going to go to many names. I'm just going to talk about this one name and then go further to the next topic. Why is it known as Ummul Quran? Because the mother is the essence of everything. The mother is where the entire family begins, progeny begins. I remember a story, I mentioned this very long ago here. In the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, and of course this is an entire topic to itself. I wish we can study history because it has so much reflection for us. Hajjaj bin Yusuf's time was one of the most difficult time in the ummah, as he was the biggest tyrant of his time. He killed many Sahaba and Tabi'un with his own hands, in thousands of numbers, Hajjaj bin Yusuf. And of course he had a purpose behind that. He thought he was doing good, and whatever the history is in front of us. In the time of Hajjaj, because he was such a big tyrant, one day he brought in a woman, and along with this woman were 3 men. The husband, the son, and the brother. 3 men. Hajjaj says, you have a choice to choose one to be saved, and the rest 2 will be killed in front of your eyes. You have 3 men in front of you. You have your husband that you love dearly. You have your son, which is the most beloved person to you in this world. And then you also have your brother with you. You choose one of the 3. 2 will get killed in front of your eyes. You choose. And they know Hajjaj is a tyrant, he's a zalim, he's not going to let anyone go. So she thought and she thought and she thought, and she finally said, let go of my brother. I don't want my brother to be killed. Hajjaj was mind-boggled. He was like amazed. Like, what? It could have been your husband that's loving to you, a child that's a part of your life. You would not choose a brother? That would be the last choice for many people. Why would you choose your brother to be the one who should be saved? So the lady said something so amazing. She says, Hajjaj, my mother is no more in this world. And the only sign of my mother is my brother. When there is no mother, there is no brother. Right? The only hope that I have, a connection of my mom, is my brother. So Hajjaj says, because of your husn intikhab, the excellence of your choice, I will let go of all three. Meaning, the mother is the asal. She is the root for the entire family itself. Surah Al-Fatiha is known as Ummul Quran because it's the root of the entire Quran. The Quran generally talks about three topics: Tawheed, Risalat, and Qiyamat. Oneness of Allah, it talks about the oneness of Allah, Tawheed. It talks about the prophecy, and it talks about the day of Qiyamah. Surah Al-Fatiha talks about all of these three beautiful things. It talks about the greatness of Allah, verse 1, verse 2, verse 4 talks about the Tawheed and the oneness of Allah. Then it talks about Risalat, it talks about Qiyamat, and that's why we repeat Surah Al-Fatiha again and again, because it's the essence, the Quran itself. One of the scholars have mentioned something so beautiful. He says Surah Al-Fatiha itself is beautifully balanced. The beginning three ayats of Surah Al-Fatiha talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His greatness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and I want you to reflect upon this, please. This might be my last message and we'll finish because I don't want to hold you on for very, very long. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise meaning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are praising the greatness, the qadr, and of course the rububiyyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, still talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rahman, Rahim, the merciful. We all know this. You must have heard this many times. The Rahman and Rahim both means merciful. But this mercy is of two types. The mercy which is in this world. Those, na'udhu billah, who curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah still feeds them subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who use their eyes against the will of Allah, Allah never takes their eyes away. Those who use their tongues, na'udhu billah, to curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah never takes their tongues away. Those who use their hands to rebel against the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their own hands, Allah never takes their hands away. Meaning this is the sifat of Rahman, and Rahim meaning the sifat of the day of Qiyamah. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is divided between Rahman and Rahim, this is a topic to itself that we cannot talk about. The third thing is Maliki Yawmiddin. This is also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Three ayats talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, talking about Allah. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Third thing, Maliki Yawmiddin, talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's hold this thought for a second. The last three ayats of the Quran are talking about us asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's talk about this. What are we saying? Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Sirat al-ladhina anamta alayhim, ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim wal-dhalin. Right? Three things that we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So three ayats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greatness, three ayats of us asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is the middle ayat of the Quran talking about, the fourth ayat? It is talking about the mixture of both. And what is this? Iyyaka na'budu, O Allah, only you do we worship. Wa iyyaka nasta'in, all that we ask you for help. So beautifully balanced Surah Al-Fatiha itself. The greatness of Allah and our abdiyat. And the second thing is, we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. We are seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. And then we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for three beautiful dua. Surah Al-Fatiha itself is one of the best dua that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave this ummah. Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best dhikr is La ilaha illallah. And the best of the dua is Surah Al-Fatiha. Why is Surah Al-Fatiha the best of dua? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us the etiquettes of dua. And brothers and sisters, Ramadan, all of us will be making so much dua, right? Now learn the etiquettes of dua from Surah Al-Fatiha. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Afdal dua Al-Fatiha, right? The best of dua is Surah Al-Fatiha. Why is it the best of dua? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us the etiquettes of dua. What is the etiquette of dua? The first etiquette of dua is, before you make dua, all of us, anytime, any language you, first thing is, praise Allah as much as you can. This is the first step of dua. When you are making dua, just don't start asking and begging, right? How does a child do it? Being a father of three little ones, 5, 2.5, and 1.5, you know how it's done. Dad, you are so nice. Dad, you are the best. And then my little one, 2.5, she will come and she'll start hugging me, and you know it. You guys been through this, and some of us will learn all of this. That's how it gets done. The first aspect of asking your dua is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely of His greatness. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Take few minutes in your dua to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, you are Kareem. And speak in any language that you can. Make sure you build that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then show your need to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are muhtaj, you are in need. Do not be arrogant when you are making dua. Do not be arrogant when you are making dua. Show your need to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you need it, you desire for it. Don't say your dua. Surah Al-Fatiha is teaching us the etiquettes of dua itself. Praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala your needs themselves, and then beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your needs. And if you can, send your salutations and durood on the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam before you make your dua. And these are some of the etiquettes that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has taught us in making dua itself. Brothers and sisters, I'm not going to delay this further, but I'm going to wrap this up for you. Surah Al-Fatiha itself is the beginning of the Quran itself, recited in every single rak'ah, in every single salah that we read itself. Surah Al-Fatiha itself is something which is a bond between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Fatiha itself is the conclusion, the essence and the summary of the entire book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Fatiha is the best of the dua that any one of us can make at all times. Surah Al-Fatiha itself teaches us about Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. It talks about Risalat, the prophecy. It talks about Qiyamah. It talks about the ahkamat and the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, as concluding these words itself, Surah Al-Fatiha itself, which is the first surah to be recited, the first complete surah of the Quran to be revealed to the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a Meccan surah itself, and leaving behind the message of our abdiyat, meaning being the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the might and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So always keep this in mind when we are reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, that at every moment of our life, no matter where we reach and how high we reach, we are always in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will always be in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the abd is in the need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them at every moment of their life. And that's why this surah of the Quran, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told one sahabi in Medina, a long hadith which is a very detailed hadith. He said, I was sitting in the masjid, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I will teach you. He called him, but he did not listen to him. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why did you not listen to me? I was calling you. He said, oh Nabi of Allah, I was making salah. Authentic hadith. I was making salah, so I could not reply. Then the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, have you not read the ayat of the Quran that when Allah and His Rasul calls you, you must answer to them? And then he said, oh Nabi of Allah, I did not know this. And then the Nabi of Allah said, before you leave this masjid, I will teach you the greatest surah of the Quran. Then the Nabi of Allah was about to leave. He said, Ya Nabi Allah, you never taught me the greatest surah of the Quran. And the Nabi of Allah himself said, it is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim till the end. So he himself, the Nabi of Allah himself says, A'azamu surah, the greatest surah of the Quran itself is Surah Al-Fatiha. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten our hearts with the Quran and the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to take back something from the kalam itself. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our hearts to learning the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from the remaining days of Ramadan. And give us tawfiq and ability that we can spiritually and physically benefit in this month, inshallah, and benefit others as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to live our life according to the Quran and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.